what is Britain's standing in the world when it comes to particularly military issues at the moment? Will the rest of the world be looking at Britain right now and thinking, because of this announcement, we've really got to take Britain seriously? How much influence do we really have?
It's difficult because it varies in different regions for different reasons. By and large, the way that Ukraine has been handled, so that in Europe means that the UK is a serious player. The UK was moved first before the full-scale invasion in providing defensive equipment to Ukraine. It's taken initiatives on long-range missiles, on tanks, and so on. Yet the backup, certainly on tanks, comes from others. So I think it's played with a limited capability, more substantial than others in Europe. It's got quite a lot out of it, extracted quite a lot out of it. In Asia, again, there's been quite a lot done with South Korea, with Japan, with Australia, with AUKUS, the submarine deal, which again is are big deals. These are new weapons projects with Japan and as well as the submarines. But there's still a question of what actually could the UK commit if push came to shove, if there was a big confrontation, and problems that we've had with the two big carriers breaking down too often, with delays in getting aircraft for these carriers and so on, with the army being cut back and having trouble with recruitment. These point in the opposite direction and raise questions about what sort of strength there really is behind the claims and the rhetoric. So it's a mixed picture, but politically it's been played quite effectively.
And obviously the nuclear deterrent has been a sort of important part of Britain's ability to punch above its weight. But even on that, there are now concerns about whether it works. The last couple of tests haven't gone well. Is it an actual independent deterrent, or are we in fact really just dependent on America? And is that card less valuable than it used to be?
I think in some ways it's become, again, politically more important because of doubts about Trump. And one of the arguments always against having an independent deterrent was, well, we've got the Americans, why do we need our own? But if you're not sure about the Americans, then that argument becomes more important. It is independent in that the Americans couldn't stop us using it. If the Prime Minister decided, after no doubt deep and careful consultation, that he should press the button, it could be pressed. And I think the tests are unfortunate, but the last one is in part is easily explained. I don't think it doesn't tell you too much, except these things are quite expensive to do and you don't do them that often. The only issue, there is an issue with dependence upon the US. If the Americans really wanted to push us out of the business, they could make life very difficult. After about 6 months, there would be problems in keeping the show going. But I think in that sense, it's not as independent as, say, the French. But in terms of actual usage and the fact that always, again, going back to these systems being important for alliance relations as much as the threat, the idea is always interdependent. The idea was always interdependence with the Americans going back to the 1950s. And that was the way the relationship was sold. So you get an influence over American decision-making as well as and the broader alliance decision-making, which the French don't have in the same way because they don't commit their force to NATO. So it's still relevant and I'd say more important now because there's more of a question mark against the long-term commitment of the United States.